You want to get to the point, cut out the unnecessary details. Hello and welcome to this edition of Study Saturday here on International Yankee English. Today we will be covering the top 5 mistakes that non-native English speakers make. If you haven't checked it out, last week I covered the top 5 mistakes that native speakers make. If you're interested, make sure to check the link in the description box and watch that video. So let's get started on the top 5 mistakes that ESL speakers make. Coming in at number 5 is the word order. English has a specific word order in most cases. There isn't one set word order that every sentence must follow. There is usually a variety of ways that you can phrase a sentence, but there are some rules that help you. For example, when you have multiple adjectives, there's a specific order that generally should be followed. So I'm going to show you some examples, and I'm going to show you the acronym SASHCOMMON. I'm not sure if that's the best way to pronounce it, but this acronym should help you with figuring out what the correct word order is when it comes to adjectives in a sentence. Coming in at number 4 is that and which. The use of that and which is not that complicated, but people tend to overuse the word which. Which is only used for some certain circumstances, and that is used much more often. So usually when students, ESL students or speakers, use the word which, they do not use the necessary comma before it, and it's actually not appropriate to use that word in that context. So I'm going to insert here a clip from my video on this topic, that versus which. So I've always taught my students, when in doubt, use that. That is more commonly accepted for many reasons, and I will get into a few of them in a minute. Which is more specific. Which also cannot be used for people. It can only be used for places or objects. Who or whom can be used for people as well as that. In fact, it can be used more often than that. So, there are many different nuances between using that and which that we won't have time to go into today. Coming in at number 3 is the number 1 mistake that I gave to the native speakers in last week's video, and that is subject-verb agreement. So it's not that non-native speakers make this mistake less often than native speakers. It is simply that it is not, in my opinion, the number 1 mistake for non-native speakers. So I'm going to insert a quick clip from last week's video in order to show you the subject-verb agreement mistakes that both ESL and native English speakers make. For example, every one of the International Yankee English videos are great. Was that sentence correct or incorrect? It's actually wrong. I know, that sounds wrong for me to say it's wrong. I said videos, so obviously the verb that follows has to be are for plural, right? Well, think again. Mistake number 2 is wordiness. That basically means using far too many words than necessary to explain the subject at hand. So I have covered this in the past. This is definitely something that can come up in conversations. Native speakers will be able to be more succinct and get to the point a bit quicker than non-native speakers. But non-native speakers also have trouble in spoken English as well as in written English. With written English, it's actually much more difficult to get the clear thesis or understand the main point. But in spoken English, usually you are a bit more informal, so you can get away with it a little bit more. However, if you are being wordy because you don't know the words you want to say, then that can become a big problem for an ESL speaker. So I'm going to insert a clip here from my top 5 informal English writing mistakes video. That was maybe about 5 weeks ago, a Study Saturday video I had. This is an example of a wordy sentence versus a succinct, to the point, clear sentence. So what do we mean by wordy? I'm going to give you an example of a wordy sentence. Ashley ended up having to drive her car all the way to The Hague from Alkmaar because she missed the last train leaving Alkmaar North, the train station where she can leave her car all day, that would get her to work on time. Very long sentence, right? So not all those details are important, and we can cut out the majority of them and say instead, Ashley drove to The Hague since she missed her train. Done. And finally, my number 1 ESL or non-native speaker mistake on this list is the misuse of articles. By articles, we mean either an indefinite article, a or an, or a definite article, the, or no article. So I'm going to show you a couple of different examples. So what you see here is an example of an being used improperly before the word girl. An should only be used before a word that starts with a vowel, namely A, E, I, O, U, or it should be used in front of a word that starts with a letter that is pronounced like a vowel. For example, hour. The H is silent. So by saying I waited a hour, that is incorrect. Then you should say I waited an hour. A should only be used before words that are pronounced like a consonant. So basically all non-vowels. For example, the G in girl. So I saw a girl. If you meant a specific girl, for example, one you were supposed to meet for a job interview at 9 a.m., you would say, I saw the girl. But if you just mean a girl in general, like somebody wanted to ask you, who did you see at the store? You may say, I saw a girl. But if you mean somebody specific, for example, an interviewer that you were expecting to meet at a certain time, then you would say, yes, I saw the girl. Often, non-native speakers will add an article, either a definite or indefinite one, so the or a or an, before words when it is not necessary. For example, we saw the girls in the male locker room. If you just wanted to say that you saw girls in the locker room that was meant for boys, you wouldn't say the in front of girls unless you meant specifically girls that you would expect to see in the boys' locker room. So that's it for my top 5 mistakes that non-native English speakers make. If you would like any more videos on any of these 5 subjects, make sure to comment below and let me know your thoughts, and I would be happy to provide some more videos on those topics for you. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you next week for Study Saturday or at my next More on Monday video. Bye!